We're on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Steve Gaterman. I've got Chris Cooper here on the webinar today. The board does these, the Lender Realtor Committee presents these, and we have these usually the first Wednesday or Thursday of every month. And today, of course, is going to be a topic that we've got that Chris actually initiated and suggested, building a strong purchase contract in the seller's market. It has changed, and Chris thought it would be a good idea to talk about some of the things that might be helpful to you as agents as the market has changed in presenting contracts. So the presentation would take maybe 15 minutes. We'll take some questions. You can go ahead and type your questions in. We'll take those at the end, and we'll hang on as long as we can after the presentation's over to answer as many questions as we can. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Chris Cooper. He's with RE/MAX Preferred, and he's going to kick us off.
Good morning. Thank you. First, I want to say thanks to the board and the Realtor Lender Committee for helping me and letting us be a part of this this presentation. The reason we're here today is our group has noticed a shift in the market. I think everybody has in probably the past 4 months, maybe even longer in some cases. And recently, I've been in, and I primarily work with sellers, but in some cases with buyers, we've been running into multiple offers and been banging our head against the wall because we've been getting beat out on good properties with good people. So we decided as a group that it would be a good idea to try to come up with some best practices. And some of these best practices have been tested in the field by our staff and our group here. And most of these have become quite successful if utilized in the proper way, and of course practicing them is something that's very important. Initially there were several main ingredients to drafting a strong purchase contract for sellers to consider. In addition to the terms on the contract, while it's been widely discussed, is allowing a short amount of time for responses. Yeah, and that's been debated. We've done it a couple times, giving 4 hours, giving 5 hours. Traditionally, when I started in 2006, it was give them 24 hours and allow them to respond, and that was good for the few years there. And then all of a sudden, it's been like, hey, if we give someone 24 hours to consider a contract, how many more offers can be drafted? It's not always worked, but it's been something that you can certainly try. I know at least it's been successful during the negotiation if a response is made by a seller or countering you with your response only giving a short amount of time or a shorter window to respond to a counter. It's been quite successful over the past couple months. Moreover, delivery, we'll go into a couple things as there's several areas here discussing delivery of the contract and how that can create a higher level of confidence for the seller to consider. Delivery is very important, and we'll get into that towards the end. We'll also discuss some more helpful ideas that you can test and put these to practice out in the field. Clearly, price is always the most important denominator for sellers to consider. However, it's not the only item. There are other things about a purchase contract that you can use to flex your muscle a little bit, or at least put your client in a better position for leverage. And that's something that we'll get into also. One thing you could consider, and I've talked to, and Steve can help me with this aspect, is consider an increased earnest money amount. Now, is it a good thing? Well, I can tell you one thing. It shows a higher level of seriousness, even with the debate of the purpose of earnest money. It's been widely discussed with my group where earnest money is heading, and is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it going to cease? Is there going to be some issues? You know what? It's promissory money. I believe it shows seriousness from the other party, and when I deliver a contract, especially if there's two on the same home, and one of the buyers has a higher level of earnest money than the other, I will present that to my seller and show them that, look, these people are willing to put up what seems to be their entire down payment, which is something that, as far as I understand, if you're putting 3.5% down, you can put 3.5% in earnest money on a purchase contract. Steve, is that?
Absolutely. You can put whatever you'd like. Most lenders would want to document the earnest money if it's over 2%. That's kind of industry standard, but far and away, whatever money is in the contract towards the purchase, we could use as money towards the loan down payment closing costs as well.
We will discuss questions. I see there's a couple coming up, and we will have some questions towards the end. So make some notes as we go through this, and I will certainly like to talk to some of the questions and get some feedback, because it's always good for us. Besides the earnest money increase amount, we're going into the next phase, and this is something Steve is going to really touch on, and that's the financing. If the offer is contingent upon that. This could be the almighty when multiple offers are being presented to a seller. How strong is the letter that you are attaching to the terms? Is your buyer working with a lender that you trust? Or did your client bring a lender that they've worked with in the past that perhaps you have not spoken to? And working with a lender that you trust will help. It's imperative to help build you a level of confidence in your delivery. And if you haven't spoken to the lender before for your client, it's best to call them and talk to them before you even deliver the terms, and make sure that they can give you a high level of confidence for the buyer. And these pre-delivery, I call them pre-delivery conversations with a lender, will always allow you to understand a level of confidence for your client, resulting in a higher certainty for the delivery. And of course, the seller, if you're working as a dual agent, you can always deliver it that way, and we have a lot of those going on. So Steve, what are some notes about pre-approval letters and strength in letters that you might want to touch on?
Want to cover that now?
Sure.
All right. Let's go and get to that section here on the screen. Hold on one second. As Chris said, knowing the buyer's lender is relatively important. Are you familiar with the lender, you as an agent? If not, you need to ask a lot of questions. So knowing the lender, the letter that you get from that lender is important. There's a whole other topic we can discuss and have in the past on pre-approval versus pre-qualification. And those terms mean a lot of different things to different lenders. And then you also have possibly even a loan commitment. So, and there's anything in between. So there's not a uniform industry standard on those letters, unfortunately. So what you have to do as an agent is you have to discern how strong the letter is. Some of the questions are, have they pulled credit? Have they given documents to the lender? Has the lender reviewed those? Has the loan possibly gone to an underwriter? Sometimes it's not very apparent on the letter really what stage, and if all those things were done, that's where, especially if you don't know the lender, those are really some important questions to ask of that lender and of your buyer as well, so that you know how thorough that letter is. Because in theory, a standard pre-qualification letter can be gotten by a phone conversation with a buyer and discussing their income and assets and job history and things like that, and calculating ratios. So on paper, it looks like they're okay. Those letters can be done with credit or without credit. So again, the whole focus of making a strong purchase, writing strong purchase contracts would be that how strong is your letter. And sometimes you may, as an agent, want to add, not to the letter, but add some verbiage to the offer and some conversation to the presenting listing agent as far as this particular buyer and what their strengths are, because the letter may not tell the whole story. Other thing is, does the financing fit the offer? First-time home buyer programs, if we do some of those, you may need more than a 3-week closing. Does the property need renovation? So you might need a renovation 2 or 3K type loan or something other than that. And then if the financing, for example, is above $600,000, FHA won't be viable unless they're putting quite a bit down. So The financing in that offer is important too, to make sure it fits what property they're purchasing, both on the timing, both on the sales price and the condition of the property. Those are all very important things. So knowing the letter is the key there, so knowing the letter and how strong it is and what questions you can ask around that, I think are really, really important to find out as a agent representing the buyer. So when you're making that presentation, you can verbally tell that to a listing agent, or you can actually put it in an email. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
To me, it's important to know who it's coming from. I mean, it's critical to me and it's not the case. I mean, you don't want to be you don't want to be biased in any way. But if you get a pre-approval letter from an institution that you have absolutely no idea where that's coming from, who is this group? They've never heard of them before. I think it's encouraged. You can ask your office managers, but it's encouraged to pick the phone up and call the lender and do some investigation on your own before you draft those terms and put that forward. It will help you be confident in delivering the contract to the seller's agent. And I think that level of confidence in delivery, we'll get into that as the last piece, is delivery. I think that's very critical in drafting a strong purchase contract. So next in our list here is the chattel or personal property. Now, it's check with your lenders, obviously, but if it's included in the MLS, that's one thing. But let's get into that. It's clear that in our world right now, personal property is becoming a hot topic of discussion. What to ask for. Sellers often ask me, what should I include? I got this really nice refrigerator. Should I include that? We have these front-loading washer and dryer. Should we include that? I got a 5-acre plot here with an enormous zero-turn lawnmower. Should I include that, or should I ask for that? Although this area of the contract may not determine the outcome, it could prolong the decision by the seller on what to accept, including what to negotiate with. A few best practices that I've always used and it's been very successful recently is clearly include what is listed. If the MLS has it there, you can certainly include that. If there are other items that your buyer wants, be sure that they are absolutely in the highest of priority. And I think we want to put those on a separate addendum. However, the more the buyers ask for, the clearer the seller is to understanding what they want. And what this sometimes gives, and I use it with my sellers, is it gives my sellers leverage 100% of the time. Okay, they want the fridge, we didn't include it. Okay, they want the shelves in the garage, we didn't include that. They want the flat panel television in the basement mounted on the wall, none of that was included. Let's use that now as leverage against the buyer, especially if you're in multiple offers and you're asking for a $1,000 television or something that that's not included in the MLS listing, and now suddenly you've asked for it in a contract, and it kind of puts the buyers in a position where, hey, what if the other buyer didn't ask for that stuff, and the seller can take it with them, or if the seller intends on selling it, they can sell it and make a profit in cash to someone outside of the contract. So those are things to think about. Make sure that if your buyers are asking for chattel, or otherwise known as personal property, that they are doing it with the highest of priority. Next is the appraisal, and I tell you, this has been very high on my radar for probably 3 years, and we strongly believe that creating solutions early is absolutely highly recommended. And you think about some of the issues you can come up with in appraisal. Well, if the contract is drafted with it being contingent, and it will be if there's financing. Remember a few of these practices here. During the delivery of the contract, and it's recommended that you call the listing agent and talk to them. During the delivery of the contract, most contracts are contingent upon the appraisal being satisfied. Encourage the listing agent. Now, these are good ideas. Encourage the listing agent that you will work closely with them to develop suitable comps and hand deliver those comps to the appraiser when they show up for their evaluation. You can certainly do that. We do it 100% of the time, and I can tell you 100% of the time The appraisers are very grateful for your presence there during their evaluation. They are grateful to get the list of improvements. They are grateful to see the comparables that you've done. And I strongly believe it. You approach them with gratitude and appreciation for what they're doing, and you approach them with, I want to learn how you evaluate real estate. I'm quite passionate about this perspective. And if you show that to a listing agent, that you want to cooperate, that cooperation will flow over into their presentation when they deliver it to their seller. And having you be there, especially if you are 100% genuine in wanting to help them. Listing agents will love the initiative. I love the initiative when buyer's agents come to me and say, you know, I want to be a part of that. Be professional when working with the buyers in that level. And remember that when you're delivering about the appraisal, be focused on protecting the integrity of the sale. And that is what your clients will love the most. It's what the listing agent will love the most when you're delivering, is that you're being professional, you're being at a high level of wanting to protect the integrity of the sale and promote that during the delivery. Next on the list here is appreciation. And I'm going to share a really good story with you about appreciation that has to do with multiple offers on a property. And you can take this story and you can share it with others. You can share it with your clients. But it worked, and it was a wonderful story. There is an aspect to consider with appreciation, and what I mean by that. We recently experienced multiple offers on a property I had listed. I've got 2 of them to be exact. We then went to both buyers and told them that we would like their highest and best delivered within 24 hours. And both buyer A and buyer B delivered their highest and best, and each offer was absolutely identical. Line by line, all the way down through it, they wanted to close near the same time. The purchase price was the same. The closing cost was the same. The chattel was the same. They wanted a home warranty, and it was contingent upon an inspection. It was incredible. Now, I delivered it to my seller, and here's what I delivered to him, because this is why I believe delivery is so important. Agent number 1, or Agent A, expressed to me how appreciative and how grateful that the buyers were to have the opportunity to purchase the subject home. They raved about the detail, and they reveled in its brilliant design and how it was well upkept. They marveled in how the property made them feel so good. Now, this was all during the delivery of their highest and best. Now, agent number 2, or Agent B, offered none of this. In fact, they painted a much different picture of the home. They pointed out in their delivery how much the home needed work and how the areas were outdated. Routine maintenance seemed deferred in some cases. And all of these points were to justify their offer price. I've heard that before. Oh, we're coming in here because it needs this, and it's got that, and we want to fix this and that. And I get that. However, what I did in this case, when I delivered it to the seller, I was certain to let the seller know how the buying agent delivered their terms to me. And believe it or not, how surprising that the seller chose Agent A, even though the terms were not better than Agent B. And I think that is important. So that gets into delivery. I believe the days of beating homes up is over with. I really do. I understand condition is important, and it obviously 100% of the time dictates value. But the one thing that doesn't really affect value in my eyes is how much the buyers appreciate. Remember this. The sellers are emotionally attached to their home almost 95% of the time. They've got blood and sweat and equity into that home, and so they're emotionally attached. Hit those emotions and use that as leverage for your client, the buyer. Remember how emotionally attached they are to those homes, and use that as leverage by telling the listing agent how nice the home is. Delivery. This is a practice that's been strong of mine. I've used it for 4 or 5 years, being very grateful for agents when they come to me or when I deliver them contracts. And I believe this is one of the strongest ways to deliver or to present strong purchase terms. Delivering the contract with gratitude towards the seller. Be thankful to the listing agent in all aspects while maintaining a high level of professionalism during the delivery conversation. It's clearly encouraged that you call the listing agent and talk to them that, hey, we got a contract coming. I kind of wanted to go over the terms with you, answer any questions for you. Being professional, I think it can carry great weight with sellers. You can't control a whole lot. You can control the way you approach the listing agent. You can control the way you approach the delivery of the contract 100% of the time. These sellers have an emotional attachment to their home. Use that as your buyer's advantage by showing the sellers how very nice their home is and how grateful your clients are to be purchasing the home. And before, as we get to the end here, there was one other thing, and this was where I was talking to my partner last night as I was going over some of these notes. And he brought up something that was really cool, and it's not on anything here, but you can take these notes down. And I might even try it. I've never practiced this in building a strong contract, but it's called an acceleration clause. It's quite interesting. Let's say you are relatively certain you got a brand new listing your buyers want to see. You're writing offer terms on it. And you have feelings that there are other people knocking the door down while you're there. You think that there's going to be multiple offers. On an addendum with your purchase contract, you draft an acceleration clause that states, my buyer will submit purchase terms $1,000 more than the highest offer as long as you present me with the offer, the additional offers, and let us know that they actually came in writing. And that's always something. I've never tried it before. I think it might be interesting to do. There's nothing against saying or doing something like that, as far as I know. But yeah, that I've not tested it. I encourage someone else out there to test it and tell me how it goes. But an acceleration clause where your buyer simply writes on an addendum that they will increase their purchase price by $1,000 over the highest contract drafted, as long as those other contracts are presented to the buyer to let them know that they actually existed.
That's interesting.
Very much is. So, with that, those are just some of the best practices that we've used, and I think we can maybe open up some questions. I'm certainly interested. I love talking about this stuff for sure.
Okay, so we have a question here. Let's see. I have seen contracts written where the buyer has a purchase price, but also will
a clause.
Well, a clause that states buyer agrees to increase the purchase price.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about.
Hold on, it goes on here. Hold on here. To $1,000 best offer over. Yeah, we're talking about that right now. Your thoughts? Okay.
I love it. I've never tried it. I would certainly like to. I think it's absolutely an awesome way to do. It's called an acceleration clause. Now, I don't know. I've never received one. Primarily working with listing agents, I've never received terms like that. But I think that's absolutely legit. Steve, what?
This is Everly. I've used an acceleration clause and won the purchase for my buyer. So
perfect.
There's someone there that has used it. Great.
That's awesome.
Great news. And let's see here. And there's Ryan here saying, I've tested it. It works if the listing agent is receptive. So we have quite a few experiences with agents out there doing this. We're looking for some more questions here.
Oh, wow.
Yep, some more coming in here. What about the capping of the amount?
Capping of the purchase price amount?
I guess that's an acceleration clause. I guess it's referring to.
Yeah. I think that's a neat idea. I've not seen it, but I certainly think it would work. I don't think many people are using it actually, so I think it would kind of catch some people off guard. That's where delivery may be very important, especially if you're dealing with a listing agent that's never seen anything like that before.
There's someone here that says, "Can you please repeat the acceleration clause again?"
Yeah, it's you draft terms, $100,000 home, very simple, and you draft a separate addendum that simply states that my buyer will draft or will purchase the home for $1,000 more then the highest offer drafted, as long as you, the listing agent or the sellers, present us with the other offers to make sure that they were written. You don't want them making up saying, oh, someone drafted 105,000, so you'll take it to 106 when there really wasn't another offer drafted that high. And I don't think there's anything, as long as they black out, they can black out names, I'm sure, but as long as the price is noted on there, I think that's okay.
All right, let's see if we got some more questions here. Scrolling through.
Oh yeah, not to exceed. I think that's what they're saying, not to exceed. Yeah, you can certainly do that. You know, your buyers are going to be the one that dictate that. Yeah, I don't want to go any higher than 115 or whatever it may be, and you can certainly put not to exceed on that last page. I think that would be in the best interest of the buyer as long as they say it.
I like the idea of offering to help with the comps to the appraiser. Recently did just that as listing agent, and we got the appraisal through. 5,000 over asking price on multiple offers.
Outstanding. See, and talking about that, how can our neighborhoods, think about this, agents, how can our neighborhoods ever increase in value if we can't get them to appraise for higher than what some comps are in there? So I think that's what's important in drafting these comps and helping the listing agent do that. I don't have a lot of buyer's agents that offer that help because I guess maybe they don't feel like it's their responsibility, and I get that. It may not be. We take it upon a responsibility to protect the integrity of the sale 100% of the time and working with the appraiser. And if you're the buyer's agent, it's just one more depth. It's one more level of depth that adds to a purchase contract when the listing agent can deliver it saying, you know what, this agent was very proactive. They want to help us with the appraisal, but more importantly, they want to protect the integrity of the sale of your home, Mr. Seller. Here's the offer. And so that's something that's very important.
All right. Any other questions out there? Go ahead and type them in. Okay, here's another question here. The channel seems to hold up underwriters. How do we get it to convey at no cost and paper with no delay?
So let me throw this at you, Mr. Lender.
Yep.
Putting it on a separate addendum where only the buyer and seller are working it and not putting it in the contract. Is that acceptable with your financial institution? I
think most lenders, most underwriters, they want to see the contracts and any and all addendums. That's technically what lenders are supposed to see. So a side addendum supposedly is not supposed to work. So we're supposed to see all that. Now, what I have seen work in the past is where that item in the contract that's they want to keep. Maybe it's a really elaborate swing set, wooden swing set.
Sure.
You can't move anyway. So,
sure.
Or maybe it's something that you can move, like a tractor or so forth. What I have seen work is to actually do a bill of sale contingent on the closing of the contract. So, upon successful closing of this contract, the seller will sell to the buyer for $1 the lawn tractor. I've done that before, and that's worked. So that's addressed basically in the contract. It is part of the contract, and it's for a nominal amount, obviously, and it doesn't affect the value. So that's worked. Now, lenders have different opinions on that. You see it all over the board. Some say take it out altogether, but if you address it because the buyer does want it as part of the transaction, that's one way to address it, is make it such as a bill of sale for $1.
Okay.
Have you ever tried that?
Nope.
Okay.
No. No. With some of the addendums we've drafted for, I deal with some rural homes out in Claremont County. There's a lot of tractors and perhaps big lawnmowers involved in sales. And I put them on addendums before stating that they had no value in the sale, or that on the top of the addendum it stated that this transaction for this lawnmower was not in relation to the transaction of the real estate, and they've been satisfied before. But of course, putting that on a contract for an FHA, no way.
Yeah.
Underwriters see that there's a pool table involved in the sale, and they're like, hey.
Right.
So you're absolutely right about that. Keep that stuff off.
And really, to clarify that, it isn't that FHA has changed. For example, with FHA, the issue with personal property, it's just with all the changes in lending, it's become scrutinized more than it has in the past. It's nothing new, really. It's just become more scrutinized is really the short answer.
Just to keep in mind with the chattel, And again, it's encouraged. If your client wants it, draft it in. Do what your client asks. However, keep in mind that there are agents, savvy listing agents, real savvy ones out there that will use that personal property as leverage against your client. And I think that's something to keep in mind as you go through negotiations. Okay, they want the tractor, so let's use that as to get them up on a higher price. And I think that's something that we want to keep in mind when you're talking to your buyers about what they're asking for.
Okay. Another question. In 2002, 3, 4, and 5, boom, I used this clause numerous times, and it worked very well. It does not need to be $1,000 depending on the listing price of the property. It could be as little as $500.
That's cool. Yeah.
So looks like we have some history of agents using that.
Yeah, that's
Thank
neat.
you, Rob.
Awesome.
Let's see any more questions here. Scrolling through here. Delivery seller goes a long way. Example, I have a seller who did not represent called me months later to assist her with another transaction. And she commented, I was very impressed with how you handled yourself versus my listing agent, so I would like for you to help me. That's great.
I love that. You know, you got to remember something as a buyer's agent out there. You're representing the buyer, trying to do their best interest in them when you're delivering these purchase terms. But another thing you're doing is you're building a reputation for yourself. And in dealing with the volume of transactions that we handle, we deal with a lot of different agents on any given day, and you can certainly tell a difference between the ones that have a higher level of self-confidence or maybe even a higher level of production, and it comes across in their delivery, and I take note of it every time because it's something that's very important to me. So offering assistance, doing things like that, going out of the way, and maybe it is an extra step, but remember, protecting the integrity of the sale, I don't think there's any bounds to that.
Another question regarding the acceleration clause. What about the other items in the contract? Someone could offer a high price but ask for more chattel, TV, fridge, lawn tractor, etc.
Yeah. And I guess the question goes to offering a higher price, I guess, than what their mean is over list. Then, as long as you feel like it can comp out over list. We've had some over list offers, especially in the past couple of months. I don't know if many of you are practicing up in the areas of Westchester, but man, up there it seems like if you list a good home up there right now, and let's say it's between 160 and 200, man, those homes are popping. I mean, pop, and they're not on the market for longer than 36 hours in some cases, and they're gone. So going over list may be something that's important, especially if your buyers really want the house and they've got nowhere else to go, and they're frustrated with their search, and they're frustrated with you in some cases, and you kind of chuckle at that, and of course you have no control over a lot of it.
A comment here from Rob. Personal properties should be listed on a separate bill of sale and not an addendum to keep it clean and legal. All right, I've covered that. Let's see, more questions coming in regarding the chattel. Separate bill of sale for chattel, $1 to be conveyed at closing. Would the $1 actually be transferred? Well, theoretically, yes, but honestly, from my perspective as a lender, we're not really going to verify that actually happened. The lender is more concerned with the chattel and how it affects the price and if there's consideration there. So honestly, that's nothing that we actually verify after the closing. I've never had to do that. I'm not sure about an agent if you have to do that, but I guess that's up to the individual parties that are writing the transaction. Let's see here. No, in other words, would the buyer actually give the seller a dollar? We just addressed that. That would be up to the agents involved. Now let's go here. We've got some more questions. What if the purchase price exceeds the appraised price?
I can talk about that.
All right. That happens sometimes.
Oh, it does. It hadn't happened to us since about 2011 until June of this year. It happened on a property that I knew 100% we sold it for more than what the neighborhood would bear. What actually happened is the sellers, they simply over-improved the home. But the buyer, you get a buyer in the door, they're able to do anything with the market the way it is, and so they drafted terms. And I felt that the property was a little high, but I still felt like I could meet the appraiser, which I did. I hand-delivered comps, which I did, and we discussed it at length. And 3 days later, it came back $5,000 less than what we sold it for. A couple things can happen. Steve can touch about it. It was an FHA deal, so that appraisal sticks with the property for 5 months. Any other lender can find that case number for that appraised price, and there it sticks. I think it was 6 months, but I think it's 5 now. Something tells me I think it's 5 on an FHA deal anyway, maybe even conventional too. And then the only other way to sell the property is that the buyer has to come up with $5,000 because the lender's only going to give them the amount of money that the home appraised for. It's from a loan perspective. And well, this buyer wasn't able to do that, so we had to put it back on the market. And fortunately, we were in multiple offers when we accepted it, and the offer we ended up taking was a cash deal. So now it sold for $5,000 less with the other offer, but it was cash. There was no appraisal needed, so we didn't have to revert to anything, so that was fortunate. But unfortunately, that does happen, and you just have to be confident with your comps. And if you can debate it, you can challenge it. I don't quite know the process in doing it. We've not challenged one before, but you certainly can call the appraiser 100% of the time. There's nothing against the law that says you can't. The lenders are the ones that can't. You can call the appraiser. Be nice to them. I always believe it. Calling them, I believe that a negative attitude towards others can never bring you success. So call them, have a conversation with them, make sure that you review the appraisal that they did, and ask them, did you see this comp, if it was one that's not on the report? And in some cases, and I talk to appraisers on a regular basis, they will admit that they have made a mistake if you can help them find one. They are very prideful, most of them are. It doesn't always happen. But if you've got a legit case where there was a property that you felt should have been used on the appraisal, it was in the time period, it was similar in square footage, it was similar in design, it was similar in updates, and it was a legit comp, talk to them about it and make sure that you bring it to their attention. And that's the best way I know how to address it.
Yeah, most lenders will allow a buyer agent to reconsider the appraisal by sending, you got to send new data in that they don't already have. So that's one of the keys. And maybe it's not just the data of the comps, it's more of an explanation of the subject property that's being sold, why it's superior to some of the comps. But most lenders will take a reconsideration back to the appraiser. If that doesn't work, obviously one of 3 things can happen. The seller sticks with the price, and the buyer can put that extra amount down, whatever that difference is, even on FHA. Maybe the seller comes down, or you can divide it in the middle and split it in the middle, and the buyer comes up with a little bit extra money. So if you're not that far away, usually you can work it out in most cases.
You know, if you stay focused and you meet the appraiser at the home, ask them when you're there, did you pull any comps prior to coming here? Do you see any issues with this house appraising?
Right.
Ask them, write to them, be upfront with them, let them answer the question. And if they say yes, there may be some problems here, show them your comps before they even draft the report.
Right.
And work with them, but always be good to them. They're out there to help us. They're out there to make sure that the bank finances this, despite what the industry may be saying about them right now. I don't believe any of it. They're out there to help us.
Yeah, and there's a miscommunication, misnomer that appraisers will take the data. They do want help. They do accept that. It makes their job easier. It doesn't mean that they are trying to you're trying to tell them that it's worth this amount. But I think the key to that is also the delivery, as Chris said. It's like, I'm just here to help you. Here's some comps I pulled you might find helpful. And I think most appraisers will accept that for what it is and would accept the help, honestly. Comment here, got to be careful of the appraisal after using the acceleration clause. So that would stand to reason if the acceleration clause sets a high amount and it goes above listing price, and of course appraisals could be an issue in that case. Let's see if we have some more questions here. Is it ever appropriate for the listing agent to call the appraiser, or should that occur via the buyer's agent?
I, as a listing agent, which is what I primarily do, talk to the appraiser 100% of the time. There's no exceptions. They will call us to set the appointment to tour the property, and at that point, I carry on one of the greatest. In fact, I'll tell you how cool I get with some of these appraisers. I actually had one call me last week that I worked with a few months ago, wants me to list his house. How cool is that? And I tell you, if you just be good to these guys and girls that are out there helping our industry with appraisals, if you be kind to them, you'll get kind results. Now, not all of them are going to be happy and smiling. You know, everyone has bad moments. The industry has really beaten them up over the past few years, just like it has us. But you have to take it into consideration. The buyer's agent can reach out to them. Usually the best way for a buyer's agent to get their contact information is from the listing firm. The listing agent's going to have their contact information once they set the appointment on the home. They can meet them there the day that the appraisal is going on. Show up. Open the door, sit on the couch, and wait for them to arrive. And when they get there, stand up, shake their hand, give them your card, hand them the comps, and say you're there to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question, not a question, it's great conversation. I've seen contracts written where the buyer has a purchase price, but also put a clause that states buyer agrees to increase the purchase price $2,000 or best offer up to X. What are your thoughts on this type of clause in the contract?
I love it. I think it's awesome. You know, especially if your buyers want the house on a level that they have to have it. And that's where making sure that you have a conversation with your buyers. Do you want to do this? And then once you've established that you're going to do it, the way you deliver it to the listing agent is very critical. I think it's a wonderful clause.
Agent comment, they've used it and it's worked.
Mm-hmm.
Acceleration clause, we covered that one already. Let's see here. Many agents get excited when they get offers and forget that FHA appraisals stick with the property for 6 months. I always forward pace my sellers that this could go south quickly if we get a low appraisal. So yes, their appraisal values with FHA do stick with the property. That's why if you have one, you should contest it if you don't believe it's accurate, because you can deal with that appraisal at that time and try to contest the value, try to change the value, try to increase the value in this case.
Yeah, and here's a way to understand that, and I totally get that area of being worried and concerned about that happening. You can do some preliminary research on your own during the negotiation term, making sure that there are comps in the neighborhood, and tell your buyer, listen, I can't find comps to comp this price that you're writing on this, and be upfront with them. And I think it's 5 months that it sticks with the property. You may have to check that, Steve. I think it's 5. But nonetheless, it does stick there. And it actually puts the seller in a bad state because they can't sell their house for any higher than that price for 5 months.
Right, it does.
But it also hurts your buyer because they want the house. And when the one I had back in June fell apart because of this, you know, I felt bad for my sellers. Now, we reverted to a cash offer right away. But I felt for the buyer and their agent because he wanted that home. And now he can't have the home he wants because it didn't appraise. And, you know, you've got to be, you just got to be, you got to stay positive as much as you can.
Absolutely.
Find the comps.
Right. Another agent has used acceleration clause and won the contract. So
nice.
Okay. I think it looks like we're out of questions for the current time. We kind of ran over a little after 10 o'clock, 10:15. So obviously a good topic and a lot of feedback from agents that have experienced some of this and also asked for some help. So great session today on writing a strong purchase contract. Someone's saying this was great. Thank you. Yeah, so another thing is we looking for ideas for future webinars. And again, they're the first Wednesday, Thursday of each month. So if you have some ideas, you can email those to Annette, and she'll bubble them up to the Lender Realtor Committee. We meet next Tuesday, so we'll be planning future webinars for the rest of the year. So we'll take your feedback, and anything is available and nothing's off the table. So, give us your thoughts. This was obviously a good topic that was current and pertinent because based on all the questions we're getting. And just got another question here. Love the webinar concept. Thank you. Yeah. We do too. The board has purchased the software GoToMeeting so that we can do most of these right here in the office. And we like the topics. I mean, the attendance has grown. This might be the largest, I think, initial group we have on the webinar, and I'd like it to grow to a larger scale. So, it's set for a half hour typically, but sometimes we go over, especially if we have good content and good questions. So, as we did today. So we appreciate everyone logging in, and we will do this again beginning of next month. But thanks everyone for participating and all your good questions. Anything else, Chris?
Nope. Thank you, everybody. And I want to thank the board for helping conduct and coordinate this. And thank you, Steve, for your time today. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Chris. Good topic. Bye, everyone.